Hey, how's it going? So today I'm going to play some games with the Gardevoir EX list that I've been liking lately. It's basically like Henry Child's list, but I added a Drifloon and a Bravery Charm, as well as a Pal Pad to the list. I don't know, I liked having access to a second boss, or just extra Turos, or just being able to Pal Pad in like Arvens and Ionos at the end of the game. It comes in handy for games where we're like down a lot of Kirlia, and having a second boss just can be nice. Yeah, that's all the main changes to the list I made. Got the Flutter Mane as the main attacker and the TM Devo strategy pretty heavily for any evolving deck, and then the Drifloon is nice for like finishing off games against Regidrago and Raging Bolt and decks like that. And I also made a video on how to play Gardevoir, so the link will be in the description for that. Check it out after this video, of course. And yeah, let's get into the games. Alright, game one, my opponent won the coin flip and chose to go first. They started a Pheasantipity, and Pheasantipity snipes the bench. That is definitely something to take note of, and something I certainly forgot about. And this is Charizard, so now they can also bench snipe, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't know if that deck really needed any more tools. Alright, so I have a pretty decent hand here. I top deck another Munkidori, which is kind of useless. I also debate playing the Ultra Ball, but I don't end up doing it because I kind of want to keep it in the deck. There's only two. I want it as a way to find my EX and Kirlias, and then after the Iono, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I get into two Poffins anyway. And I can Poffin for double Ralts, and I should Artazon for Manaphy here, but I put a Mimikyu on my bench, which I think kind of ends up being a mistake, because it just ends up sitting in the active forever, and the game doesn't really play out in a way that I need it. So I should have got Manaphy there. I didn't thin the Poffin because I wanted it as another out to get Drifloon. And I also attached to the Flutter Mane before I Iono'd. I probably would attach there either way, but that also leaves the option for a TM Evo open if I were to get into it. And I get Iono'd into another Poffin and top deck another Poffin, so hindsight, I probably should have seen how many I prized and thinned it out when I realized I had all four of them in the deck. Just the way she goes. Arven for Hyper Aroma. This card is, I don't know, I like the Hyper Aroma a lot in the deck. It definitely comes in handy in situations like this, when you miss the Evo and it's just like triple Level Ball basically. It's the only card that we've gotten that's even close to replacing Level Ball, so I've been liking to play it lately. I get the Dark Energy, so I'm going to attach that while I can. I kind of hesitate there because I don't know, I don't want to encourage my opponent to knock out my Munkidori anymore, but they probably would knock out my Kirlias if they're going to knock out anything, so that doesn't really make sense. And I trade into the Iono, or the Manaphy I mean, and then right here is where I remember that they can snipe the bench. Like, oh man, that was kind of stupid. Probably should remember that, but I haven't really played against Pheasantipity much since the set just came out when I played this game. So they're going to kind of go all out here, which I think is like a massive mistake against, I think any Guardy decks. A lot of them are playing the TM Devo right now. Of course, they haven't seen it yet, but they're going to like triple rare candy here, which is kind of good, like great for me, because that's gonna make it really hard for them to find another candy when I TM Devo them. Normally in this matchup I would set up damage for a lot of turns, but if they're gonna like burn 3 candies and not even evolve into a Charmeleon, it seems like a pretty simple TM Devo. So we'll see if they evolve into the Charmeleon is kind of what I'm thinking. Knocking out 2 of my Kirlias though really does suck for me pretty bad. Kirlia is pretty nice to have to draw cards, but I already have the Arven and energy in hand, and they're not going to knock out my Flutter Mane anyway. So a counter catcher would be nice though, to be able to counter catcher up like R.LUM.R Manaphy and then TM Devo. So I'm going to be looking for that. I can also bench the Manaphy, so at the very worst they knock out my Flutter Mane. I could attach the Luxurious Cape to it to avoid it getting knocked out by the Pheasantipity. Yeah, and there they go. knocking out 2 of my Kirlias in 1 turn. That's a pretty broken combo if you don't have to burn 3 candies. And I top deck TM Diva, which is kind of nice, so now I don't have to play the Arven to find it. And I was hoping to trade into a Super Rod there to throw back some of my Kirlias into the deck. And this is really where the Mimikyu gets annoying being on the bench. As you can see, I can only put 1 Ralts in play because I have to bench the Manaphy because I'm going to be leaving the Pheasantipity alive, so I want to protect my bench against the snipe. And if I didn't have the Mimikyu, I could Arven for a Super Rod, but I think I'll probably end up using the boss right now anyway. I'm just scrolling through the turn thing, whatever that's called, to see if they played a supporter last turn and to see if there's like any way I could know what's in their hand. And I think that they played like an Arven last turn, but there's really no good way that I could know if they have like another supporter in their hand. I do decide to boss up the Manaphy anyway. I was thinking about bossing up the Rotom. I don't do that because I don't want them to Turo that out of play. I would rather them Turo the Manaphy up and then just rebench it. I accelerate to the Flutter Mane ahead of time, so if they somehow have Candy and Boss in their hand and knock out my Guardy, I could still attack and not have to put another EX into play because I cannot put another EX into play next turn, and that could definitely like spiral this game out of control if I didn't have a way to at least attack something, because they could like keep hunting down my my Ralts or Kirlias and not ever let me get a EX out. So they evolve into their Charmeleon. I am definitely gonna counter catch it this turn, which I kind of wish they didn't hit that Charmeleon because I would have much preferred to Arven for an Ultra Ball or something to get another Kirlia out, or at least I think I need to get a Super out at this point still to put the Kirlias back into my deck. But my logic right now is kind of if I keep hunting down the Charmeleon and stuff like that, it's going to make it really hard for them to get into a Charizard anyway. So I'll just keep doing that while I can. And this 2 damage is interesting. I could put it on the Pheasantipity to set that up for a Gardevoir EX knockout. I could throw it on the Charmeleon or the Pidgey. I end up throwing it on the Pidgey because I can keep piling damage onto it with like Flutter Mane and Munkidori. But I should have put both of the Flutter Mane pings onto the Pidgey so that I could accelerate 1 energy next turn and still knock the Pidgey out and really make it so that they can't get out of Pidgeot. It would be much nicer to knock out the Charmeleon, but I can't do that with the amount of damage that I have in play right now because they're not knocking out my Pokemon, so I can't put more energy in play to keep adding up damage. And I do top deck a boss, which is really nice. I think that is going to kind of lock up the game. That was a pretty lucky top deck. I will say, even if I didn't top deck it though, I think I would end up being in a fine spot just with the way that their board's set up and stuff. Because they could get out 1 Charizard if they find the candy. And they put another Dusknoir or Duskull or whatever it is on their bench, which makes absolutely no sense. They should have benched another Charmander so that they could try and like Candy and Desard and Super Rod a Charmeleon back into the deck and re-evolve it. I put the 2 damage on the Pheasantipity to set it up for Gardevoir's 190 attack because they can't knock out my Guard EX, so I'm should almost be guaranteed to be able to knock out this Pheasantipity next turn, and then after that it really doesn't matter what they do because I'm going to win the game on the next turn. They evolve into a Duskull, which that 5 damage is kind of pointless, but I'm guessing that they're trying to work up into evolving into the Dusknoir, which that really doesn't make sense either. I'm gonna knock out this Pheasantipity, and if they knock that out I would win, but I end up being able to win on that turn anyway. They knock out my Flutter Mane and realize that I just have to accelerate to my Gardevoir, move the damage over to the Pidgey, and then knock out the Pheasantipity. So I think that's a perfect example of why the Dusknoir isn't like super scary for Gardevoir if they go crazy like that turn 2, and they really have to do it on the second turn to make it super impactful. They just end up getting punished really hard by TM Devo, and without Pidgeot, it's pretty hard for them to find outs to, like, you know, Rare Candy and Charizard, because they really need like the Arven and the Forest combo typically on the second turn to get out the Pidgeot to then keep grabbing the other non-item piece that they need out of their deck. But that game kind of went exactly how I imagined it, so I wanted to showcase that, and on to the next game. Alright, so I won the coin flip and chose to go first. I've been choosing first blind with this deck, but then stuff like this happens and makes me question reality, but not really supposed to let one game make decisions for you like that. I originally think I'm in a mirror match because I don't normally see Ancient playing this Screamtail, but it is Ancient Box, which on paper is a pretty bad matchup, but I played quite a bit of Ancient Box, and I really don't think it's as bad as a lot of people imagine that it is, just because Ancient really does end up being kind of clunky deck. So if you get even off to a semi-rough start like this, and you can't thin out the deck enough, late game Ionos hit really hard, and it ends up being pretty difficult to get the combos that you need. But I get a pretty like perfect start here for my second turn with the Arven into Poffin into Evo. Well, this would be a better start for my first turn going second, but I can't really complain. I dodged the donk, so that is pretty cool. They Pokegear into another Sada. And are they not going to use it? That's definitely smart of them, I think. Saving their Sada, they're already down 1, and they probably want to see what they top deck and get off their prizes. And I have made, I don't know, for all they know, I'm not knocking them out because I haven't really done much yet. And it looks like I'm going to get the bare minimum here to get a knockout. I wanted to hold the Pal Pad as well, but I ended up Pal Padding Arven back in just to increase the odds that I hit it, just so that I can get really anything else going, like an out to more Ralts, or like to super odd that Ralts back in and get it back out, or a easier way to get my Drifloon, or even just a Vessel. There's a ton of different things I could have grabbed with it, but I don't end up getting it, so I just have to Ultra Ball for the Drifloon, and I have exactly enough to, well, I have 10 damage over, but basically exactly enough to knock out this Roaring Moon. So I'm really hoping that they miss an attack next turn, because my hand is looking pretty rough right now. I could have attached the Bravery Charm. I don't know. Never mind. That's probably worth saving. It's my last tool left. And I could always trade it away because it's not super important in this matchup. As long as I keep Munkidori in play, I should be good to go. And it looks like it looked like they were going a lot smoother that turn, but they don't end up getting an attack. If they have another Sada though, they are going to be set up for the next 2 turns. Basically in this matchup, at a certain point, either you're going to want to go for the Iono and like counter catcher up, like Screamtail without an energy would be kind of a nice thing, and snipe the bench, or try to Turo the EX out of play to stay ahead in the prize trade. I was pretty lucky to even get ahead in the prize trade in this matchup, but I think that Ancient Box can definitely be pretty clunky, and it is not uncommon for Ancient to whiff a couple attacks at the beginning of the game until they get rolling. Like, I don't know, I've had this happen a ton of times with the deck. They just can't find their energy in this case, so they can't get ahead on attachments. They should have 2 attackers built up by now, but they don't. Can definitely get kind of annoying. But as long as I'm able to force them to keep knocking out Drifloons, and they can't find one of their counter catchers to knock out my EX, I should be able to stay ahead in the prize trade here, which is nice. And then when they're gonna be at 2 prizes, when I go down to 1, I will definitely want to Turo my EX out of play that turn, because that is the most ideal turn for them to knock out my EX to win the game so that they don't get Iono to 1. So I am going to want to stop them from doing that. It would be kind of nice to be able to do it earlier if I had enough energy where I could build up multiple attackers in play. But this game I'm kind of just barely getting by. Yeah, so they should have no problem attacking me this turn. They're doing plenty of damage. I think this might actually... I don't know. I wouldn't hate it if they counter-catched this turn. Well, I would hate it, but I wouldn't blame them for counter-catching this turn. It would kind of make sense if they're expecting me to Turo my Guardy out of play. Because they got to know that they're getting Iono'd next turn. I could have Iono'd them last turn, but I would rather wait till they're down to like 3 cards in hand. Because, I don't know, 3 cards just seems so much worse than 4 to me. Even though I did let them thin the deck quite a bit more on this turn. I was kind of just hoping that they wouldn't find Pal Pad, and they don't, so now my Iono will almost certainly be effective. Can also just burn that last Super Rod, because I'm going to need Drifloon for one of my last attacks. I don't want to use it for this attack though, because I want to save it for a Roaring Moon with a Bravery Charm or a booster capsule on it. I also found the stadium, which is a really nice find. I don't want to leave Pokestop in play for them to, you know, get into like a Vessel and a Pokegear or something like that. So I can just replace their Pokestop with my Artazon. I don't need to use it though. I already have the Flutter Mane in hand. I probably could just grab the other one out of the deck, but I don't end up doing that because, I don't know. I'm forgetful, I guess. I probably should have done that. That was kind of the plan. I actually almost forget to play the stadium here, which I should definitely play. And this is kind of where in the game when we're behind a prize that there would be a pretty good chance that they would whiff the attack, and this is where we'd be able to become ahead in the prize trade. And earlier, ideally, I wouldn't have knocked out the Screamtail. So if we were behind, I could have combined that turn with a counter catcher on the Screamtail and used my own Screamtail to snipe the bench Roaring Moon with the energy on it, and then they would need too many cards to attack, or they would need to find like one of their single switch cards that they usually play to get the Screamtail out of the active, and they do just end up letting their turn time out there. But I can Munkidori the rest of the damage over and knock them out. If I could have also Turo'd and knocked them out with Guardy if they had like an ancient booster capsule or something like that. But that is the Guardy deck I've been working on. I think it's pretty good. Having the Drifloon is definitely pretty nice. I really like the double Flutter Mane version though, so that's why I kind of tossed them together. There was definitely times when I was playing that version where I kind of wish that I had a Drifloon just to make finishing the games off a little easier, or just sometimes in matchups you get a little far behind and you really need to just one-shot something to get the prize trade even like kind of in your favor. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.